Welcome back to Practice Underwater. Exciting episode today. This is the first time that I get to interview somebody that I've met in person. I believe I can say that. And Matt, you just said that shows.
Yeah, I mean it's a very funny couple episodes. It's a lot of roasting. I mean he's all for it, so it played well. I was laughing a bunch, and I also want to say it is criminal that you gave this away for free. Like I think I need to pay you for all the knowledge you gave, Alex. Like honestly, like just so much value was gained in just this hour and a half of the two episodes. So I will be Venmoing you some money, George.
Oh man, I'm so looking forward to it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go buy ice cream or something.
There you go.
It's funny because we often talk about, we have our interns, the guys that do the pursuit of ownership, and you, Richard. So a lot of us don't hear the other recordings while they're happening, and we go listen to them after they launch. And I genuinely don't remember what I say in episodes. I just come, I talk, whatever I'm thinking is what comes out. I have very little filter. And then I hear about it afterwards. And apparently I drop F bombs every once in a while. And apparently I, have fun. And, apparently I roasted him. I mean, honestly, I have to listen to it when it comes out because I don't remember.
This is a good listen. I would recommend it. It's really good. These are
Yeah.
these are for the listeners. These are a very good next couple episodes coming up.
Yeah. So but in general, right, in person, I tend to roast people more, right? You've hung out with me in person. I tend to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean when you have a personal relationship, when you can see their face, it's a lot easier to.
Yeah, I mean, in general, as a person, I like to make fun of other people. That is an
Right.
enjoyable thing for me to do. So I really do enjoy that, and hopefully, I'll get more confidence with guests to start making fun of them more on the show. I think that'd be fun.
I would love that, please.
All right, we'll jump in. Alex is a great sport. I liked him a lot in person. I like him even more on air. Welcome back to another episode of Practice Underwater. I was going to start by saying alrighty. Apparently, that's something I do, but I'll just jump right to it. We're back with Practice Underwater. I have with me here today a good friend of mine. We just thought of his name before we launched. He is Alex. This is real Doc, but his fake name is Alex. So Alex and I, before we get into Alex, him and I know each other. He took the ownership accelerator, and usually when somebody does that, I start the relationship with them pre-ownership. But I didn't hear from him until he was in Phoenix, and he stopped by my practice. We had dinner, and I showed up my office after work one day, and we had a couple hours. It was a lot of fun, and I got to know him. And then I think we decided that he wanted to look at his numbers and his metrics and everything in PBN and get him on Practice Underwater. So here he is. Alex, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How you doing?
Doing good. So it's not often that we get somebody on air that's been inside of my practice. And so I always like to annoy them with just having them talk about, I guess, what they took from that experience and what you took from our time together. And I have not told you, or we haven't really talked about me asking this question, but I just in general always say no to a shadow request because that's just my team doesn't like it. But I like to give tours of the office after hours to people, and so that's what we did, Alex. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about kind of your experience and I guess some things that you took away.
Yeah, I really appreciated you having me over there. Pretty short notice. I think just a week before, I was like, well, I'm going to be in Phoenix anyway. I should just hit up George and see what he's doing. Yeah, I think I've been sensing, problems in my practice coming for a long time. I just want to learn from the best. I noticed it was updated. Probably the first thing I noticed, just a nice, comfortable feel. The wall art was unique for sure. And I really appreciated learning about the routing slip checklist, streamlining just the process, just so you're not dropping the ball anywhere. I thought that was nice for me to see and something that I want to implement in my own practice. I think also what surprised me is just the pace that you've owned the practice for 17 months, or how long has it been?
Yeah, about 18 months. Yeah.
So we graduated at the same time, but I did a 1-year residency. So anyway, I'm just thinking like, man, if I did all the updates that George did, updating the office, getting a cone beam, just rehauling and revamping all the systems, I'm like, I have been just sitting on my hands and just coasting for the last 8 months. And so I think that was interesting to see too. And one of the quotes you said is success man, what was it? What was your quote about success, George?
Success is not an accident. That's like my favorite quote ever.
That's it. It's not an accident. And I've just been thinking maybe it's just going to come without putting in the work. So just seeing all the work that you put into it and the system you have in place, I think was eye-opening to me, and I need to get off my butt and do something.
So, that's interesting. I did not expect that to be the ultimate reaction there, but that's goofy. Well, I'm happy that we were able to connect, and now I want to kind of shift gears. So you sent me a long email, and I purposefully did not read it. So I like to walk into these interviews for Practice Underwater with very little information, so that the audience can sort of see things as I'm seeing them. And so I want you to sort of outline for me, what do you feel like is going on in your practice? Tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey into ownership. The audience has no idea who you are other than we've hung out in person before. So talk a little bit about kind of your experience in life and ownership, and just give us a little bit of rundown of kind of your story.
Yeah. So after dental school, I had a decision to make if I was just going to go straight into private practice or go to a residency. And I went to dental school with Derek Williams and looked up to him a lot, and Steve Vandergraff, look up to both of those guys a lot. And so, and listen to shared practices. I thought, ownership's the only way to go. So I'm going to do a residency and get my clinical skills up, and then I'm going to go straight into practice ownership. So, my name's Alex. Is it okay to tell everyone where I'm from, or is that going to give it away?
Yeah, I mean, choose what you like to say carefully. We have detectives out there, but also, I think it's nice to, in general, kind of give people an idea of what state. If you're comfortable saying a state, I don't think anybody's going to find you.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm from Idaho and wanted to get back to Idaho. But there's a lot of dentists in my hometown where I'm from, so I didn't think it would work out. So I was looking for practices. Found a couple in Oregon that the numbers checked out really well based on Ownership Accelerator and podcasts I'd listened to, and checked those out. It just didn't feel right. So I ended up back in Idaho, and I stressed from July till February till I found this practice. And when I found this practice and looked at the numbers, the overhead was low. About 52% overhead, and it's a smaller practice, about 800 patients. So I thought at that time, the practice can grow with me, and I know it's not great. I wanted to buy a bigger practice, but the selling doctor was asking for $300,000, and he was going to sell the building for $225,000, and it was 800 patients. So I thought it was a great start and not too expensive for the area. So it's actually a really good deal for the area.
So what size, like his 12 months collections or production or whatever, what was it before you started?
His last 12 months, 2018 for him was at 452,000. That was adjusted production.
Okay. 452. Okay. And then, so on a monthly basis, he's looking at like almost 40 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that collections? Is that similar to that?
Collections. It's probably, yeah, his collections are pretty good.
Okay. So I'm looking at it. Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking at your numbers right now in PBN. And so, yeah, it looks like 451 was 2018. So yeah, pretty much about almost 40 a month. Okay. And, so tell me a little bit about kind of your first 6 months of ownership, and, I guess what are your kind of chief complaints, and what do you feel like is going on in your office right now?
So first 6 months is awesome. I mean, I got here, I really love dentistry, work with my hands, getting to meet the patients, and just kind of like the honeymoon phase, just going through and I have a great team. I didn't have to hire anyone. I did get rid of one staff member. I interviewed at 15 different offices in the area. I told them, I want ownership within a year. I don't really want to do a long-term associateship. So I either want to buy an office outright or like have a partnership opportunity within a year.
Okay.
And one of the offices here in town said, Like, oh no, you don't want to be an owner. Like, it's too much work. There's so much headache. And like, no, I'm pretty sure I want to own. And so that just kind of fueled my fire a little bit. And so I got here and, real gung ho and ready to go. And I asked them too, like, how long did it take you to pay off student loans? They're like, well, it took me 7 years. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to beat that. It took Derek Williams 1 year. And I was like, I can do it in 3 years. So I paid off $37,000 of student loans last year. And, but then collections started lagging. And so there came a point where if I would have paid off my credit card, this was like last week, we'd only have $2,000 in the business bank account. So, which is like way too close for comfort. It takes about $20,000 a month to run my office, to pay staff and overhead and lab bill and whatever. So, it was just like, man, what's going on? So my accounts receivable are like, I think they're at like 2.5 times about 1 month production. And so it's like I've produced some money. I'd like to be producing more, and I'm also not collecting what I've already produced. So it's been really stressful, like, well, what happens if I can't pay my employees? And why the heck did I pay off $37,000 of student loans? I should have saved that money to weather a storm like this until I can, get things figured out, get my systems in place, collect more than 80% of what I produce, get this accounts receivable down to a manageable percentage. And so, I thought I had things figured out. I thought I did my due diligence and thought I bought a good practice. I still think I bought a good practice. I know I have a great team, but don't think I have the right systems in place for sustainability.
Okay. And so I think the first thing that sticks out to me is kind of what you had already mentioned. Looking through your dashboard, you kind of have a large AR issue. So, your AR right now is coming up on 3 months collections. So, it's 275%. And
yikes.
It is so. I'm not gonna rub it in. It's an issue. So
it's all right. You can let me have it, George.
I'll let you have it. The 83 AR days. So that's a metric that we use to evaluate AR, and under 30. So like in my office, we would like to be under 30. You're at 83. I believe that's the highest I've ever seen. So, I mean, to put things in perspective on the type of AR issue we have. So I wasn't going to say that, but then you invited the comment. So there you go.
Yeah. No, it's good.
So that's me being totally not nice. But anyway, let's dive into it a little bit. Cause so there are other areas to grow the practice I can see from looking at your dashboard. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about, so is the AR issue the reason why you reached out to me?
Yeah, I think I was just freaking out. I knew that was a problem. My wife was telling me it was a problem back in November. I'm like, oh no, we got it. I fired that bad apple and I just wanted a smaller team, just thought a small team was the way to go, but didn't have the right systems in place. I wasn't auditing at all. I just, felt busy enough clinically, and I have 3 kids at home.
So you fired a front desk. You had 2 front desks, and you fired one of them?
Well, I had one front desk and then a girl that bounced between dental assistant and we have a middle office. So she can work on insurance and just help the front desk. She's like a front desk assistant.
A middle office?
As well. Yeah, middle. It's just the office we call it. It's in the middle of our office. So I use it for treatment plan presentations and things like that. Gotcha. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got a back office and front office. I've heard of middle office before.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just the office in the middle of the office.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. So you let go of the floater.
Yes.
Okay. So now you got one assistant, one front desk, and one hygienist. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and this is the crappy part too, is I have 3 assistants, all are part-time.
Oh, that's right.
2 are moms, with young kids at home, and one's a student.
But every day in the practice, you have one there, correct?
Yeah. Some days, if it's really busy, I'll have 2. But yeah, usually just 1.
Okay. So in November, you said November is when you got rid of the floater?
September.
September. Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay. And has your AR just kind of like slowly gone up since then?
Yeah, it has. So the seller, worked on AR from January when he figured out he was selling. He whittled it down to about 1 month. I think it was like 40,000 is what I bought. And maybe you can see it there better than I can.
Yeah, I'm trying to look right now. I'm
so I bought
to...
end of June.
Okay.
And then it has just steadily climbed from since then. And I haven't had, tabs on it or my eye on it. I knew it was kind of climbing, but so here's my fault. Like, I don't know anything about the front desk. I don't know anything about like filing insurance. I just rely really heavily on my team for that. And I know I should pull out an EOB and ask my front desk to walk me through, how do you submit a claim? What do you do when a claim is denied? Just have her like walk me through and show me that whole process. And I have not.
Yeah. And I'm going to push back on that idea because I don't know how to do any of that stuff.
Okay.
Like,
awesome.
That's not totally necessary, to be totally frank. I don't think that is a necessity that the dentist knows how to do those things. I think it's a necessity. Like, I know how to do some things in my practice because I've had to learn them, right? Like, you might learn to do an EOB because you had an AR issue. So you're going to get pretty entrenched in this. But I think when you have like data and metrics, like, you just know how to diagnose each of these systems. And if they're going okay, then you don't have to touch them. So I've never had a collections issue. And so the intricacies of AR and, AR you learn with clients because a lot of clients have AR issues, but like submitting an EOB, like, yeah, I mean, that's not, I've never had to do that. So I guess that's, I don't know. So I guess for you might learn, but in general, I wouldn't think. So you bought it and you guys were collecting, pretty close to what you were producing. I'm kind of flipping through month by month to see kind of where you're at. And it seems like your collections and production were kind of closely tied together. For a bit, was the floater, so she was in charge of collections, correct?
Yeah, she helped with collections, especially like the older accounts, like over 60 days.
Okay, so do you feel like your AR is more patient based or insurance based, or both?
I know I checked it out. I think it's pretty even. Yeah.
Okay, so what are you guys doing right now to handle the AR issue?
So I've been meeting with my front desk. She's awesome. And we've got like 4 pages worth of patients that owe us money on the printout from Open Dental. So she just went through and highlighted them all in different colors, like what's insurance, what's owed by patients, and then like other special circumstances, who's over 90 days, which of this AR is people that I've never even met before, like from before when I bought the practice. So it's all sorted out. She hopped on top of the insurance ones, and then she also has a list of those who are like ready to be sent to collections. Okay. And also just having a finance policy in place is something I didn't have. I just kind of like intentionally stayed out of it. But so my system now is, as I'm in the operatory talking about a patient's treatment plan, and if they ask me about finances, I just say, I'm going to have someone come in here and talk to you about how much this is going to cost and your 3 options to pay for it.
So right now, as I look at your AR, I love Open Dental because when we have Open Dental, then we can see your AR in more detail. So you have 44,000, so you got 105, 44,000 with insurance companies and 61,000 with patients. So you kind of have, issues on both sides. But I would say, so what are you guys doing on the insurance side?
I guess I don't know. So some of that is tied up with, I think Blue Cross. They had an issue like switching the credentials over from the previous owner to me. Like I said, I don't know anything about this. This is just what I understand about it. And so we faxed over documentation and they said they didn't get it. We faxed it again 2 weeks later. They said they didn't get it. So anyway, it's just been like kind of a headache with them. I think from what I'm told, there's like 10,000 tied up in Blue Cross. As far as other insurances, I don't know where the big hangup is.
Okay. And so this is going to be a very intricate AR episode. Interesting. So what about like, you get a claim denied from insurance? What are you guys doing?
I don't know. And that sounds terrible to say, but like I said, I do my best to stay out of the workings
for sure.
up there. And so I have asked that question before, and it sounds like if it was coded wrong, they recode it and send it back. I don't think it's just like adjusted off or deleted. I think it's challenged and resubmitted. Yeah.
Okay, so you have the $44,000 in insurance AR. The reason why I'm harping on that a little bit is, I mean, that if it feels like it might be like an insurance company is not going to tell you I don't have money and I'm not going to pay my bill, right? Like if you guys can submit it in the proper format and get all that stuff sorted out, it might take a little bit longer to get that payment versus a patient paying with a credit card over the phone or whatever, but at least, we can get money somewhere. Because my understanding is that, my understanding is that like you're just in a really big cash flow crunch right now, and that's why all of a sudden you got really stressed. Is that correct?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because this month, like you guys produced 50, but you collected like 16. So
yeah, it sucks. It sucks, George.
Yeah, no, that does suck, and because then like you're actually, like if we're trying to sustain this size practice, like you're actually you kind of do your job, to be honest. Like I'm looking at it, I'm like, I could tell you went to a residency, your hygiene percentage is low. I mean, right, like put the cart before the horse, but like the last thing I really want you doing right now is producing a ton of dentistry, even more so than you're currently doing, because you're not collecting any of it. So your overhead is going to go up without any more collections. So like, the idea of growing your practice right now and investing in it is like the worst timing, because you're just going to have more overhead with less money.
Yeah.
But the patient AR, so like how long ago did you like start freaking out about this?
So my wife was freaking out in November. I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like we're we've got it covered.
So when did your front desk highlight that report?
What's that?
When did your front desk highlight that report?
She never did.
Right, didn't you say that you highlighted that she did a great job highlighting the report?
Oh, sorry. That was on Wednesday. Yeah. Okay. That was like 2 days ago.
We're very recently into this AR thing. 2 days ago. All right. Okay. Great. So, because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, when, so my guess is you started freaking out about it this week when you couldn't pay your credit card bill because your bank account was low.
Beginning of February. Yeah.
Beginning of February.
That's when I hit the panic button and started talking about at the front desk. She assured me she said she needed more help. She's like, yeah, I told you in November I was falling behind and I still don't have help up here. And we're working on cross training one of our assistants to sit as a receptionist so that she could like catch up on all this stuff and like work on reactivation. And anyway, like we were falling behind on everything in the front. And I didn't make my priorities clear. She was totally willing to work on AR this whole time. She just didn't know like what the priorities were. There's like a ton of other stuff for her to work on. It's like a whirlwind.
So she said she was falling behind up front?
In November. Yeah.
In November. And your response was?
Let's do some cross training. Let's get one of these other awesome, competent ladies up there to help you.
Front desk, one of your part-time assistants?
Yeah.
Okay. Did she say she wanted another employee up there, like another front desk person?
Yes.
And you said no to that?
I said, let's keep our team small and just cross train.
Okay. And I'm assuming that was for a cost concern?
Just for like just a management concern. I think I read this book. It's called Blashford Solutions sent me a free book, Bringing Your A Game 2.0. And like every doc in there just has like a small team and like 4 or 5. And so I have 5. And if I hired another, it'd be 6. And my office is small enough. I'm like, why do I need 6? And listening to Justin Short too, he's like, if you're not doing $1 million, you do not need 2 people at the front desk. So I'm like, yeah, I don't need 2 people up there, just my thoughts. But in the reality, like, things are falling behind, the ball's getting dropped.
Yeah. I'm going to rip you for a second. You seem pretty cool about it. Like,
no, that's why I contacted you, George.
It feels funny to me. Like, let's just appreciate the irony of the situation. You're like, I want to cut costs low for cash flow purposes. So I'm not going to hire somebody to sit at the front with my front desk so we can stay on top of our AR. And now you have no money in your bank account because your AR is so out of control. Literally the amount of money that you would spend on somebody. Anyway, I'm not saying you need 2 people up front. But if your front desk is telling you that she needs help, I know this is revisionist history. The purpose is not to tell you what you should have done. The purpose is more for our audience right now. So
Right.
If my front desk told me I'm drowning up here, and you're like, well, you should be handled with 1 person. That was your response. Doing under $1 million, 1 hygienist. And I am with you, right? Like 1 hygienist worth of patients, 2 columns at once. Like I think 1 front desk should be able to handle that. What is going on up there that is making it not handleable? Explore that, right? Like what is it that is going on that is creating so much work that we're unable to do basic functions?
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's a great question.
I think, so for me, in my experience, it's once you start running 2 columns of hygiene and you start running, 2 columns of restorative, for me, like, and every front desk is different, but like for me, once we started running, 2 hygienists, 2 doctors, 1 front desk started to not become enough. Or you have, and I'm talking like 2 dentists at the same time, or you'll have 3 hygiene and 1 dentist. Like I think once it becomes like, 4 or 5 columns, that's when it starts to become challenging for somebody by themselves. And the skill set, the, capacity of the person, their age, all that stuff is dictated on at what point do they start breaking down. But your front desk broke down a little early, and I would have liked to, and I still would like to, right? Like I'd like to go back, and obviously, like you're in an emergency situation right now. Like I don't want your front desk doing anything that is not AR related until your bank account is a little bit healthier, because that is quite the AR situation. From our perspective, this AR situation is kind of temporary. I mean, you really started working on this Wednesday. Like, let's be honest. So like we're recording on a Friday. So, we've had 2 days. I don't think we can accurately judge, how the AR situation is unfolding here after 2 days of working on it. And realistically, you probably have been closed today. So really you started working on it Wednesday, Thursday, and now we're at the weekend. So I would give it a month. And I know that's like, hey, Mr. Not collecting anything. Wait a month and see how it's going. But the reality is like, it's kind of, like you just need to give her a month to see how she does. And if she truly has a handle on the situation, great. If she doesn't, then, we step in there and we start seeing what's going on. But for sure, I would like the fact that you're in a cash flow crunch is more your problem than it is hers. So I would give her a month to see how much she could of the situation she could sort out on her own before we go back in there and start bothering her about what's going on with AR.
Sounds great.
Cool. So now, is it okay with you if we switch gears a little bit?
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let's talk more about your goals with the office. So we'll talk a little bit about your goals, and then we'll get into part 2 about kind of how we're going to get into them with metrics. But talk a little bit about your vision for the practice, where you want to be, and all the things that you're thinking about. So like, let's just say you were not having this AR issue. Let's just say production collections were kind of where they're at now. Like collections was somewhat closer to production than it currently is. Why would you be on this call, or what would you be trying to accomplish?
I think I'd be trying to just work on efficiencies. So getting the collections higher by attracting more new patients to the office. And then, just, transitioning from 1 hygienist to 2 hygienists. I don't have any expanded function dental assistants. I feel like I do, everything in the office. As far as like clinically goes, Cause like my hygienist is so busy, she can never run over and get a patient numb for me, like she's hopping back and forth all the time. So, and sometimes she's double booked, which is awesome. An assistant will flip her room and help her out. But, anyway, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. Main goals.
So like your goals are what would you like your practice to produce and collect in a perfect world?
Well, yeah, produce, there'd be like no limit, right? But I think if I got the practice last year was 450. If I got to 800,000, I think that'd be awesome. And sky's the limit. I'd like to go up from there, but I think just short-term goal, that's where I want to get to.
To be honest, that's not exciting enough for this conversation. Can we talk about like where like you can have anything you want, nothing's off the table, like sky's the limit, right? Your practice isn't going to do $10 million, right? Like,
right.
So what is the sky? Like, what is that number that you're like, oh my gosh, like if I could hit that, it would be everything to me. I bet it's not 800,000.
Yeah. Well, I'm a simple guy. If I was a single doc and I could produce $1 million on 3 days a week, I would be stoked about that.
Are you 3 days a week right now?
I am 4 days a week.
Okay. So,
and 3 days a week, 1 day a month, or 1 week a month. So
okay.
out of 4 weeks, yeah, it's 4, 4, 4, and 3.
Okay. So $1 million on 3 days a week. Okay. So for the purposes of our conversation, we can just call it 1.2 on 4 days a week. And then if you wanted to condense that down to $1 million 3 days a week, we can do that too.
Sure.
But I feel like a $1.2 million goal, 100,000 a month, to me, that feels exciting enough to do, and also stretches you enough. But at the same time, it is super realistic. Like I'm looking at this practice and I'm like, yeah, that's super doable. So,
really?
Oh yeah,
George. Yeah. Yeah, I need a motivator in my life. You know that.
I don't know that, right? Like, but I guess I'm looking at this. Yeah, I'm looking at your numbers and I'm like, yeah, that's super easy. Yeah, 1.2 for this practice, sure. Like, and so, but really, let's think about it.
Where I'm at, George, it's like, I don't know, it's like really competitive. And I'm not saying that like I'm not putting up any excuses. I own my fate. I own my destiny. I'm whatever that Invictus poem is. I'm the captain of my fate.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and I do want to reach my full potential. But like, I also want to keep a life balance, But yeah, I think 100,000 a month, if I could do that in 3 days a week, that would leave me enough time to pursue my other goals. I love dentistry, but it's not my entire life. It's a big part of my life, but it's not everything.
Yeah, and let's for purpose of our conversation, it's $100,000 a month, 4 days a week. Let's go to part 2, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by more doable than you think. There's a couple of mindset stuff there that you just mentioned that Matt would be remiss if I did not mention. So awesome. We'll take a break. We'll go to part 2, and then we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater. I'm really excited. All right, Matt, what did you think about that interview?
I mean, I said in the intro, I loved it. Super enjoyable. I was playing on my golf sim while listening, and I actually was doing more listening than golfing, which is rare for when I listen to these things. So wow. You really you held my attention pretty well.
Wow, I held your swing back.
You did, yeah.
Oh man, that's exciting. So what were some of your takeaways? Remind me.
I mean, the 83 AR days was just
that's chilling. A record, right? We haven't seen anything higher.
No, I have a client who's up there, but not that high.
So, right, but now we're in the middle of COVID. 83 AR days doesn't sound that bad.
Doesn't sound that bad. And exactly what I said to my client. I was like, nah, this is a nice problem to have when you have no production coming in the next
Yeah, I know. That's AR is, he picked a good time to have really, really bad collections policies.
One thing I was curious about in your interview, like when his front desk told him in November that she was overwhelmed, and he kind of just brushed it off, right?
Yeah,
it's fine. And then it finally smacks him in the face in March. I was curious, like we don't do anything in life without getting some benefit. Like what does he get out of not dealing with that when it comes in his face? Because I imagine that's how it goes a lot of times in his practice. He hears some things and gets some feedback, and then he deems if it's a big enough deal to deal with it. And this one, he clearly deemed it wasn't. And now he's seeing the effects of that. So like the life coach in me is like, huh, that's interesting. Like, how does this show up elsewhere in his life, in his relationships, or in, I don't know, family, anything. So like I was one, yeah. What is he getting from brushing things off like that? Was my big question.
Well, right. How do you deal with that? Like that's so a staff member comes to me saying, I'm overwhelmed. So that's either a breakdown in efficiency or the need for more people.
Or like training or knowledge on her end.
Yeah. Some type of breakdown. And I think we can all agree that the worst thing to do is what he did, which is nothing. It would have been better if they had either trained and fixed the issue with one person, or that's the point I was trying to make, and I kind of ribbed on him a little bit, but you at least get somebody else there, so at least you're not dropping the ball. The worst thing you can do is not do essential functions. And that's where I was kind of making fun of him. Like, okay, we're not going to hire somebody. We're just not going to do it, and
it was almost perfect how it lined up because, sometimes we make diagnosis like after the fact and it may not line up, but you were like, well, when did this person leave? He's like, November. And like, well, when did you start having this problem? Then. So it's like, okay, that person definitely was the reason this kind of all just died on him.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was just right. These are not easy things to deal with. Like we talk about it a lot on the show, not a lot, but we talk about it where the easy thing to do is to sign up for Swell or PBN or sign up for a service or switch supplies or something simple. Going to your front desk and sorting that situation out. I mean, even as a coach, I don't like doing that with clients. I mean, that's a bear.
Yeah. It's hard, but then it just smacks you in the face later. Like definitely. The longer you don't deal with it, like a staff drama, the longer you let that fester, ask me how I know, that it blows up in your face over and over again.
Yeah, I'm laughing at the ask me how I know. We won't get into that, obviously.
So other takeaways I had, this whole cross training versus bringing on another associate or another employee, I think is a unique discussion. So if you want to start on that, then I'll jump in.
I had the sigh of annoyance. I just don't like cross training in general. Is that where you stand on this? I don't think we've
ever I hate it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like my lefty specialist in the bullpen isn't going to be cross trained on how to be a first baseman.
Yes. Thank you.
Maybe like for absolute emergency, like the whole office is sick with the same thing, but I mean, that's not how it officially run a team.
Yeah, that is. I think there is this model. I forgot the guy's name in Houston. He has that practice where everybody can do everything. Assistants and front desk are all the same, positionless basketball. And that's just not a way to scale. If you want to have the team of 3 people, then you probably should cross train them because one of them might be sick, but like if you want a team of like people that perform well consistently and you can replace them. I mean, how do you replace a cross-trained employee? You cross-train the next one?
Yeah.
Like I want to know, we call like in my office, we got a scheduler, treatment coordinator, office manager, lead assistant, these people, we replace them with people with the same title that do the same thing. And by not delineating those tasks, you're really setting yourself up for, so I just don't love the cross-train, just help out where you can, pitch in, that whole situation, because the reality is you can never hold them accountable because they're doing everything. And you can never replace them if you have to. And I just in general don't like that concept at all.
Agreed. And I'm interested in your, what resources do you have available when you bring on a new staff member? Like, do you have things for them right when they start with you? How do you handle that?
Before we hire, we have a list of all the things they will accomplish on a daily basis.
So they get that in the interview or once they're hired?
So, right, whenever you're looking for a job, you kind of want to know, what am I doing at this place? So that's what I tell you, your biggest job is like my scheduler, right? We're hiring a scheduler. We say your most important job is to fill our overdue recare openings. You're calling overdue recare. You're in charge of the schedule. You're in charge of going through the routing slips to find opportunities. Those are your job functions. And we screen applicants based on who is best suited for those things. So somebody who would be a great treatment coordinator is not the same person who is a great scheduler. And finding somebody who is best for the job we're looking for. So it starts before you put out the ad. You have to know what they're doing. And then when they start, here's the list of things you're doing. Here's how to do them. It's so in the front desk is where it always falls off, because assistants, hygienists, they're really plug and play in my mind. They're clinicians. They've done the same things at other offices. They're going to come to your office and do very similar things, especially hygienists. I don't think there's an easier position to replace in the office than a hygienist. Obviously you have the relationships with patients, but other than that, I mean, they're very plug and play. And assistants are, tough because they're doctor preferences, but the front desk is where every practice seems to operate on totally independently of each other. No two practices do anything similarly up front. This, obviously not ideal from a consultant's perspective, but that's just the way it is. And so your front desk has to be very organized in my mind, and you have to clearly outline who does what, and you can't have too much overlap in those functions, or else you can't hold them accountable. If something wasn't getting done, it needs to be somebody who was supposed to do that.
And how are you handling the training once they do start? Is that something they're trained by another staff member, or do they have actual resources they can reference?
Other staff member, yeah, or me if I need to fill in a void. But a lot of times at this point, it's office manager.
Okay, just curious. And another thing I want to get into is his aggressively paying off loans and how that put him in a little bit of financial bind now. Obviously, maybe if this collection issue didn't happen, this wouldn't be really an issue for him. But I reflect back to my own situation where I did aggressively pay off loans, and what that cost me. It gave me a lot of sense of pride, sense of accomplishment. Just dead off my plate, which is nice. But it cost me practice growth, and for him, it's part of the reason he's in a financial bind. So I think that's an interesting discussion. When do you know that you're in a position to aggressively tackle loans, in a correct manner?
Can I totally curveball you on that one?
Sure.
Should anybody ever aggressively tackle loans?
Student loans, I think they should. It's I don't know. It's the only debt that's not forgivable. It's given me, like I said, a really nice sense of accomplishment. I've done something cool with this. That for me was worth it at the end of the day, despite what it cost me.
Logically speaking, there really is no reason to aggressively those are all emotional reasons.
If they're refinanced at a low interest rate, there's probably not a logical reason. If they're still at the 6-7%,
yeah, of course, then you just refinance it.
Right.
So I guess my point is, a student loan aggressive repayment, I know you did it, and so I don't have a problem saying it. It is a emotional decision more than it is a financial decision to aggressively pay down debt.
Right.
So I think in general, when you can keep liquidity in your business and your business is stable enough, then you can, and you have liquidity personally for a few months, that's when I would use any excess capital for whatever you want, whether that is aggressively paying down loans, or whether it is aggressively buying real estate, or whether it's aggressively buying toys. I don't know. I mean, whatever you want to do with your life. But I would make sure you go ahead.
Well, I think looking back on it, what I would have done is making sure I have cash reserves, which I did, but making sure that baseline, you have liquidity if something happens, like some crazy pandemic. Make sure you're fully funding retirement, and then any money left over is what you put towards loans. If it's, you have more, then you can pay more than the minimum. That's kind of how I would approach it.
And so you and I took very different techniques here. You very much, and I think Austin Davis from a few episodes ago took a very similar approach as you. Early in career, maximize income to pay down debt. For me, I very much early in my career maximize growth in my practice for future income. And then, once your practice, once you don't have you reach a point in your practice. I mean, should not be surprising to people. You reach a point in your practice where those growth opportunities are no longer there. The earlier you take those growth opportunities, the longer you have to make income off of them. And so in my mind, I would do it as make sure your practice is operating and you've taken all of your growth that you can from it. Then you'll have a higher income to then create your emergency fund. And then after that, I honestly view loans and retirement in equal light. I wouldn't do one before the other. I feel like loans or retirement are very similar to me. So if you want to pay off loans, pay off loans. If you want to save for retirement, save for retirement. If you want to buy real estate, buy real estate. I don't care.
Yeah. And I think it's just,
but I think making
it's
sure you're set up properly in your practice and you've grown that first, that is ultimately going to give you the highest return on any dollar you invest anywhere else.
Yeah. And like you said, like everything, he has all the bones to make this work and he will make it work. So his situation may seem to him dire now, but there's a roadmap to get out of this pretty easily.
Definitely.
That's all I have for part 1.
Was this only part 1?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I thought this was part 2.
Nope.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week to continue this with Alex. Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.